Welcome, R&B Podcast. We're here. Me, Russ, and a guest, Trevor. Episode 20,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a Saturday morning that we're recording on. So thank you so much, Trevor, for being here. This is actually the first time I've met Trevor, but I've heard a lot about him through Russ. They've been friends for a while now, and he is an entrepreneur and is a scholar, in my opinion. So I am looking forward to getting your opinion, some insight to what you've experienced and what you've been doing recently.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys both for bringing me on. I really appreciate the opportunity just to talk. And for anybody that doesn't know, my name is Trevor Imhoff. I am the owner of Lintaway Duct Cleaning. You could find me everywhere online, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Simple, it's all under one handle, and that is just Lintaway Duct Cleaning, where we just do oddly satisfying air duct and dryer vent cleaning videos. So you can find us all on there. Millions of views online and about 100,000 plus followers.
Yeah, very impressive, very impressive. And so with those staggering numbers, Trevor was just giving us some tips and pointers before we hopped on camera here. And I know that TikTok's been something I've been resistant towards for whatever reason, but it's given you some success in your exposure. And I think that you had a similar outlook on social media getting into it with your business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in the same boat when I first started my company. I actually started Lintaway in 2019, but I didn't start doing social media till 2021. And I just started with YouTube for like the first 5-6 months, and I got a decent amount of views, a couple thousand views, a couple hundred subscribers, but I wasn't getting the level of success I guess I wanted, hoping that it'd catch the oddly satisfying algorithm. And then I randomly saw some other duct cleaner get millions of views on it, and then all of a sudden all these customers in Arizona were talking about this guy's dryer vent cleaning from some other state. And so kind of that was the moment where I was like, yeah, I need to start exposing myself to more social media and having more of an omnipresence instead of just being stuck on one platform. I went to then at that moment Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and surprisingly, the two biggest have been TikTok and Facebook, the two that I was not willing to go to at first, and I'm so thankful I did. And it's just crazy how that transition kind of worked.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn, being open to opportunities, being open to change, because with technology changing and the social dynamic of the world changing, it was something that you found necessary to get into, and it definitely paid off. And Russ, how do you know Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, I met Trevor at the Ahwatukee YMCA, right? Doing a recreational men's basketball league. Me and Trevor were officiating the game. And this is like in the first year I was actually refereeing. So, I didn't know many people. And I met Trevor the first day that we worked together. He comes up to me, he tells me, like, hey, I have a goal of doing 1,000 push-ups by the end of this night. And I was just like, all right, dude. I didn't even know him. I'm like, okay. So every time there's a dead ball, there'd be like a timeout from a team, I just see Trevor hop on the ground and start hitting his push-ups. And I was just sitting there thinking like, yo, this kid's funny. And then not only that, because we did 4 games. We used to do, I mean, like I'm saying, early on in my career, I was trying to find any games I could do to get better at reffing. And me and Trevor used to do 4 games, like 2 nights a week with this men's league. So not only are we getting yelled at by all these different people, but we're exchanging ideas through it, trying to figure out what we could do better. And during a timeout as well, Trevor asked me, like, hey, like, you trying to play one-on-one? And I told him instantly, like, you're the first referee I've worked with that asked me to play one-on-one during a timeout of a basketball game. So, I just automatically was like, all right, he's interesting, he's cool. And then he, talked to me about being an entrepreneur and what he's trying to do out here. And yeah, from there, we just kind of built a relationship and started using each other to study and just get better.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny you say that. So it sounded like you had a good first impression of him, right?
Yeah.
And I felt the same way. And I feel like that with a lot of people, you can kind of tell their character just based off of what they choose to talk about and how they express their thoughts and what their priorities are. And I think that someone telling me in my first interaction with him that they want to do 1,000 push-ups, I'd be like, oh yeah, he's going to be my buddy, right?
For sure.
So I am very pleased to have you on our show today and get someone with a similar mindset and a similar stage in life to kind of walk us through how you got here. So tell us a bit about where you're from.
Yeah, for sure. And I also just want to bounce off of what Russ said for a second, too,
Yeah.
and mindset and everything. Yeah, I think that's why me and Russ gelled together so well. And, me and you as well, is that just when you have similar mindsets, it's good to get out there and network with people and then meet
Right.
people, similar mindsets. And it's crazy how someone could become your best friend from, 6 years ago. I mean, me and Russ have known each other for so long. I've been through so many experiences now. And yeah, it's crazy because it all just started with one meeting where I'm asking him to play one-on-one. And I have my daily goal of push-ups. But yeah, where I'm from actually is a lot about my story. I'm from Globe, Arizona, so super small town, maybe 10,000 or so people there. You either work at Walmart or you see someone working at. Well, you either see someone working at Walmart basically, or you see someone shopping at Walmart. Like it's that small of a town. So. Yeah, I grew up there first 18 years and then came out to the Valley, and that's kind of when I started my business and started officiating more, and it's just crazy what the journey has brought.
Yeah. So you were born and raised in Globe. Is all of your family from Globe?
Yeah, all of my family's in Globe, so aunts, uncles, mom, dad,
Wow.
grandparents. So I do have one grandpa in Yuma, but everyone else otherwise is all in the Globe area.
Interesting.
When you were like in high school in Globe, 15, 16, did you think that you were going to have an entrepreneurial path and that you were going to try to create your own business and do these other things?
So no, actually, when it started is I was 18 years old. I just graduated high school, and I graduated high school with no plan. I mean, terrible. I didn't plan to go to college. I basically graduated, sat around in the dark house for a month, and I got a job at Pizza Hut. Just to earn some money. And then what started the entrepreneurial spirit was I saw a vending machine there, and I saw all these people putting in cash. And so I started asking some questions. I figured out it wasn't owned by Pizza Hut, but just a random individual. And so I learned about that. Then I learned about passive income, and then I started my own gumball machine business. And it all kind of started from there. But it's just, it was all just one random day completely. And I saw that, and it kind of just sparked my motivation.
Right. But you had a little bit of inspiration prior to that, right?
Oh, yeah, actually, if I really kick back into my memory, the first ever business venture I had was I was 11 years old, and I started a popsicle stand, and I started outside of a movie gallery. Made probably like $100 or so, but yeah, that was the very first thing I ever did, was 10 or 11 years old, and selling not popsicles, but snow cones. So I had a snow cone maker,
Nice.
got the ice, and
Nice.
yeah, so started young.
Yeah. So that takes a special person to have that kind of entrepreneurial mind. But what I was looking for you to tell is the inspiration with the Lentaway business. You were telling us about a photo of you.
Oh,
Well, first of all, explain what Lentaway is. Like, explain
True.
what
Yes.
Lentaway service does. What do you do?
Yeah, so Lentaway is an air duct and dryer vent cleaning service, and we also videotape everything we do. So we work on getting all that nasty gunk cleaned out of the air ducts. There's an amazing amount of dust that collects in there: dust, debris, drugs, bugs, drywall, everything you could imagine. And then the dryer vents get crazy clogged as well. Tons of lint build up in that. So we just focus on cleaning those out, and then we also make oddly satisfying content.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then so to the photo that kind of led you into that
Yeah.
idea of business.
Yeah, so it's crazy. My whole childhood, I made tons of videos online, a whole bunch of different skits and everything. And the other day, I was washing back. I was going to see all my old videos and everything, and I found a clip when I was 11 years old. It's actually, ironically, the first image of me on the internet. Is I did a live stream with one of my friends, and we're video chatting online, and he's not even in the picture yet, but there's a dryer vent with an improper dryer ventilation, like the transition hose doesn't even have the right tape, and then there I am at 11 years old just smiling at the dryer. So in a weird way of like the universe just working and connecting everything together, it's like the first thing of me on the internet is me at 11 years old staring at a dryer, smiling, and the last thing you're going to see of me on the internet is me at 25 years old smiling at a dryer. So
Right.
it's just kind of crazy how the universe like connected it that
agree.
way. I almost feel like I was meant to do this.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one thing I've noticed, and that's what I think is inspiring to have you come on here and talk, is because you feel that way about your life. You see these things occurring that seem to make sense, and almost like you're meant to do it. I feel like that just gives us so much energy and gives us a lot of ways to inspire somebody out there, because the thing that combats feeling like you know what you are supposed to be doing is the ups and the downs, right? We always talk about, because you're an investor as well, we always talk about when you're just plummeting and plummeting, how are you going to stay consistently working and building towards your assets, your portfolio? So let me ask you, because I know you've had highs. Talk about your investments in Dogecoin when COVID was going on and how that felt.
Yeah, no, that was probably the greatest, honestly, like the greatest moment of my life is, so it's, this is, do not recommend this investing advice. But yeah, I had probably only $4,000 or $5,000 left in my bank account. I literally threw the entire stack into Dogecoin. At 5 cents, and I sold it at the euphoric tip, basically. Like, I think it got to like 71 cents or something. And I sold it like 69. So I sold like directly under that tip, and that 5,000.
I'm trying to do math in my head right now.
Yeah, well, that 5,000 became about 45,000. So it had a crazy, just euphoric. I bought my dream car out of it. That was an amazing feeling. But talking about what Russ is talking about, the ups and the downs, that's where it's interesting to stay leveled as well. Because even though I made all that money on Dogecoin, I quickly lost it all through other investments, trying to short the market, GME and AMC, and other stupid stuff. So it's all about consistency because, I hit the uptick that day and I felt amazing. But then on the inverse day, I was in GME and that was not a good day. So
Yeah, consistency and taking your emotion out of the money moves, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
Because when I hit that uptick on Dogecoin, I mean, I felt like invincible.
Right. Because
I
it's that small moment and then your mind is like, oh, this is going to keep happening. Like, I'm going to make $40,000 every day for the rest of my life.
I thought 40,000 was going to become 400,000, was
Right.
going to become 4 million to be in the Bahamas. And no, I just ended up having to work harder because I lost a lot of it on other investments. But that's the thing about consistency, is staying consistent. And also, at least investment wise, I don't always advise running up high upticks and stuff because even though I won once, I got very hurt after that.
Right.
And diversifying and protecting capital. I have a similar experience where, you had success early on in investing and then you don't really learn about investing until after you have some of those failures, right?
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
because your perspective of the investing environment does get skewed once you get a large return.
For sure.
So it is hard to be able to have that objective approach when you're dealing with your money, being careful with your risk to reward ratio, right?
Absolutely.
You made a very risky move and you get large returns with large risk, but then you can also have a catastrophic end as well.
For
So
sure.
yeah, that's a good point to make. But I think that some of those lessons have probably helped you in your entrepreneurial endeavors too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just talking about investment, with like business is, through all the stock market, I did all that investing. But I think the most important thing for me has been investing into myself and kind of talking about diversifying the portfolio and, multiple eggs in the basket is just finding an omnipresence and different, people always talk about different sources of income, find the 7 different sources of income. But I also think in my business, 7 different sources of finding people to find my business, so that's an investment in a different way. Google advertising, flyers, Yelp, Facebook, the video marketing, just all those different ways of investment instead of just putting all my eggs into Google advertising or all my eggs into videos, spreads it out so that the waves kind of come in a little bit better.
Right. I hear that. Because you find different consumers in those different platforms, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's interesting all the different types of consumers you'll find and that's like a study in itself because on Google, the people that find you are, boom, I need it done now.
Yeah.
My dryer's smelling toasty. And then on Facebook, you'll find people that maybe weren't aware of the service before, but you do it for them and they're equally as happy because so much lint comes out of their dryer vent. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting how different consumers on different platforms are at different stages of the buying cycle to say.
And then on TikTok, it's more of like an entertainment type, but I'm sure you still get some inquiries through there too.
Yeah, that's my favorite is it's funny because I do a lot of my TikTok videos with one other gentleman I work with. And people sometimes treat us like celebrities, like no joke. We pull up to their house and they're like, oh, you're the guy who had this video, that video. And oh man, I saw you on this. And it's just like a really great positive environment just to be showing up to someone's house where when we first started the company, it was like doubt, it was like, oh, do you know what you're doing? You only have 2 reviews online, to now where people are so comfortable, they're telling me about my videos.
Yeah. Credibility is important, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think credibility just goes the longest way, and credibility with consistency. You know what I mean? Being consistently credible.
Yeah.
It's huge.
How long have you been doing Lint Away?
So I started the business in 2019,
Okay.
and so we're in 2023 now. So it's 4 years, almost 5 years coming up. Kind of crazy. Can't believe it. Through the
Yeah.
pandemic and everything too. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk about you got done with high school and you didn't know what your next direction was. As I've observed you working with your business, one of the things that sticks out is your business communication. You almost seem like you majored in business communication. That's what it looks like. So how did you go about gaining those skills to be able to just communicate with the people like you do?
Oh man, honestly, through trial and error. It's funny because people worry and are so scared about failure, but honestly, all the failures in my life only brought me to be the social person I am today. Because I mean, I was the most awkward person ever growing up through middle school and high school, and I think about a lot of the opportunities I had that I missed out on because I was either too afraid to talk to people or I was too afraid to go to certain events. And so now, years later, what inspires me to be the way I am now is just there's more regret when you don't do something than when you do something and maybe you even fail. So that's kind of my mentality, is always just go out, go at it fully, go at it with 100%. And if you fail, you can't be mad at yourself because you put everything you can into your craft or what you're doing.
For sure.
Yeah. You don't want to have regret. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Yeah,
Right.
that's the worst. Thinking about what could be, and it's like 'cause you only live your life once. I mean, you're only 25 and 200 days once. You're only 27 and 50 days once. And you don't get that time back. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you point out that you felt the fear. You didn't just say, oh, I've always been able to be courageous and all these things. It's no, I had to battle against these emotions that I was feeling when I was putting myself in a position to elevate. We've talked about that before, refereeing games together, where it's like, oh, we have all these people right now watching us, and we both feel the same way. We both come from like having to overcome fear and performance anxiety and these things. So it's just interesting that continuously putting yourself back there is the way to overcome your fear. You know?
And I love the example of officiating.
Yeah.
Because with officiating, you're right. You totally have eyes all over you. And everybody's watching the game, and your decisions are really amplified. Like we were talking before the podcast, it's just like a customer service in a way. You want to do your absolute best because the customer is the fan base is expecting the best. So you don't go to a big franchise and expect to order a chocolate ice cream and then it becomes strawberry with Oreos. We're always trying to perfect our craft, and it's all about overcoming stuff, because as a referee, you can't freeze up in that moment. You just got to keep going, even if in the moment you're not feeling the most confident,
For sure.
That customer service of just keeping that smiling face, even if things in your moment aren't going the best.
Yeah, and we're under the philosophy that we love the game of basketball, so we want it to work correctly, and we're the arbiter, we're the mediators to make sure that happens. Now, I remember you telling me, Trevor, a couple years ago, you're like, hey, when I'm creating this asset Lint Away, I'm thinking about the generational wealth that I'm going to try to create. Because I remember me and you were talking about the difference between creating generational wealth and healing, and creating generational trauma and poverty,
yes.
and how they're both a way that you can build momentum towards. Your daily decisions right now at 25, 26 can either be helping the generational wealth that you're going to pass on, or can make it even more difficult for the people that are going to come after you. The reason I bring that up is because it seems like that's where your passion lies with the asset, the company Lint Away. Or do you feel like you're just super passionate about cleaning out people's air ducts?
It's funny. At this point, I'm very passionate about both. I'm not going to lie. I didn't start out that I was super passionate about the duct cleaning, but now that I see how much it benefits people and how happy it makes people and just the difference it makes, I really love seeing that. And it's given me kind of another purpose in life. Being able to do that and help people, that's really nice. But yeah, on that point, I mean, generational wealth and generational suffering, that's a real concept. And I mean, I even see it going go into people's houses in the valley, you see the people who have the 5,000 square foot amazing mansions, and their kids don't have to struggle. And then you equally see people who are struggling, having to work a 40-hour job and maybe another part-time job. And so I think in my life, at least, I really want to build something that I could pass on to the future generations, because in my early life, I've had to do a lot of struggling, a lot of different jobs, experiment a lot, and I think it would have just been nice to have a little bit of padding, and so I want to give that padding to the next generation, so they're able to fully flourish and be exactly who they want to be.
Sure. How did you get the capital to begin Lintaway, and what resources did you get first?
Oh man, so that's the funniest thing is, honestly, it was all funded on complete credit and debt. I had a business partner when I started, and we equally threw in our debt money, so literally funded it on credit cards in the first like 6-7 months. We just worked to pay off the debt. We bought the equipment, the van, all that stuff. So probably started out, the initial debt was $10,000 by the time the van was purchased, and some more equipment we didn't know we needed when we started. It ended up being like $20,000. So yeah, that first almost whole year was just spent paying off that debt. But I'm so thankful we took that step, because that's a scary step to take. At the time, I hardly ever had any money to my name. So imagining being $10,000 in debt was, that was the scariest thought. And but it was just about putting the pedal to the metal and then going after customer acquisition and trying to get the name out as quick as possible to basically cover the capital that American Express provided us with.
Yeah. Well, I have to commend you for figuring these things out so early in your life, because some people never figure it out, and some people it takes them 20, 30, 50 years. So you should definitely feel proud of yourself for that. And then in terms of the debt that you took on to start your business, I think it's funny to hear you say how scary of a venture that was for you, because you didn't go to college, right?
Yeah, never went.
So a lot of people, they're going into 20 to 100 to maybe even $200,000 of debt with really no plan afterwards. So you at least had a plan with your 5-figure debt, and you had ownership in the business and something you were trying to build with a vision, and all of that put together is so much more than what some people are able to get out of 6 years of a college education. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Oh, well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, truthfully, because and I commend people who do go through the college route too, because all that debt on top of your head, it could be very stressful. So yeah.
So Russ mentioned your business communication. That was something that I noticed pretty early with you too. We had the pleasure of hearing a couple of your inquiry calls from potential customers, and I think that you do a good job talking to those people on the phone. And then even your interaction with us, it's not professional to the point where it seems robotic, but at the same time where like I automatically feel like I should be giving you a mutual respect. So I think that that's a quality that many people struggle to develop, especially being able to mix that into like your personal interactions and not feel so robotic and I guess unnatural, but be able to have that be part of your character and carry that in through business and your personal life is a very powerful tool to have. So is that something that you feel like you've always been able to do, or you had to work on it?
Definitely had to work on it. I was the worst communicator in the past. Again, as a child, it was like when it came to simple communication with people just saying hi to me, I'd literally overthink absolutely everything I would say. And so I just started trying to live in the moment. And with communication is the biggest, most important thing, especially with running a business. One of the biggest complaints I hear is that, man, I hired this contractor and he just never showed up. He never called me. And I'm like, I don't know where he's at. So I try to communicate heavily on business, because it's both ways of communication. One, I communicate because I want to communicate that I'm coming. And second, I want to communicate if you're going to cancel, I don't want to drive all that way out there if we're not on the same page. So I think communication's huge there. And I think also with officiating, communication, I've learned so much through communication through officiating, because it's like you got to communicate with your partners verbally. You got to communicate with your partners non-verbally with hand signals, putting the ball in, eye contact. And then you also got to communicate with both the coaches and the players and even the fans, because you can't be showing negative body language out there. So communication is everything, and if you are communicative enough, you can make anybody feel comfortable.
bro, the most
yeah.
irate coach you can feel like, hey, we're coming to an understanding. We don't need to be at this level of emotion. We can talk here, and they'll feel you if
Absolutely.
you're genuine about it, right?
Absolutely.
So how did you deal with that? Because you obviously look young. You've been officiating college basketball for 4 seasons now, right?
Yeah, 4 seasons.
4 seasons.
Yeah.
So you came in at 21, obviously younger than some of the players that are even playing. How did you go about communicating with people probably looking at you like you're just a young kid?
You know, at that point, it was all about just trying to go off of rule book terminology and saying the right thing. But luckily, throughout the years, I feel like I've become more comfortable, and my communication strategy is basically just being 100% truthful and being 100% honest, no matter what it is, even if it's maybe something that you're embarrassed about or something, with a coach, especially, if you don't, maybe you don't have the best explanation for your call. Maybe it was a bad call, even in your opinion. Sometimes it's just best to be honest instead of trying to go around and say, oh, well, coach, da 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 da. So I think with communication, it's also just honesty and being genuine, because people notice that too.
Yeah.
If you're honest and genuine, it's gonna, golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
And me and you, Trevor, we've been in some battles when it comes to communication. I've been in games where every player who's black on the court thinks Trevor's being racist, and every player who's white thinks I'm being racist, and they're just like yelling at us, trying to think we have some biases towards them and everything. And it's funny because we're always on the same page, like, hey, we love this game and we're gonna do what's best for it. But we've been in irrational situations, random men's leagues, pro-ams, all types of stuff with some of the most heightened energy you can think of. Even professional women's game where we had 10 women on our head with the head coaches on our head, and like all these different situations where we've had to communicate out of. And it's interesting watching you work because, like I'm saying, you're young. You have your own makeup as far as how you're going to get certain people to trust you and not trust you, but you've always stayed fair. So you say it's trial and error. How did you learn about how to keep a game safe? Let me ask you that.
Again, actually trial and error, because with keeping a game safe, especially when I was not as confident as a young referee, something happens and it sends off the alerts, and I know that wasn't right. Hey, man, I know that kid probably shouldn't have said that to the other kid, and I don't do anything, and the next thing we know, that other kid is retaliating by shoving that kid, or now there's a bigger problem. So kind of with officiating, a good philosophy is always get the first foul, and I totally agree with that, especially in safety of anything. I mean, safety of a basketball game and safety at cleaning air ducts and dryer vents. You don't want to not have proper eyewear. You don't want to not have proper masks either. You don't want to breathe in any of that dust. And then same as in a basketball game, you don't want to let the little things go. Let's say the eyewear is the same as a kid mouthing off to another kid. You don't want that to go. And then the next step is you're not wearing a mask, and then you breathe in that dust. Or you're at that basketball game and now there's a bigger problem, kids shoving a kid. So it's kind of just that like order of operations that if you're not planned out and doing the right things, that safety is just going to slowly decline or fastly decline, depends on the situation.
Yeah, I've heard you say more than once kind of how these skills that you're developing within your jobs are transferable to the other job, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's, again, a very valuable quality to develop, because some people feel like they're wasting their time when they go to college or have a job for several years that doesn't become the career they expected or something like that. But we have to realize that whatever we're building upon can be useful. We just have to figure out how to transfer it to another situation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even with my gumball machines, I mean, in the end, that business doesn't exist anymore. I probably got up to like 10 machines, and then COVID hit, and then it kind of derailed everything. But I mean, such a small little business that was, but I learned so much of it that I applied towards my next business.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people's situations, especially being an entrepreneur. We talked about how important failure is and how important it is to be willing to take risks, and starting a business in and of itself is a risk, right?
Yeah.
And most people's first try at business isn't successful, and the people that do make it successful usually have quite a bit of help, and there's a lot of guidance that can be had, but not necessarily needed. And you've been able to educate yourself and take calculated risk and grow in an appropriate way. And now you have something that you're proud enough to wear on your shirt.
Yeah. And that's huge that you say that too, because starting Lintaway duct cleaning, there was not a lot of influence on the internet. It's such a random topic, and there wasn't really anybody doing any content on it. So I was kind of one of the first content creators on duct cleaning to say. And when I first started out with Lintaway duct cleaning, I didn't have the most education. I didn't have a mentor to bounce things off of or anything. So yeah, again, kind of on the same topic, trial and error. I just had to keep going at it, and I kind of just self-taught myself along the way. And through time, I've gone to training courses in Indiana, Florida, and I continue to try to educate myself and yeah, just try to educate myself and grow every single day. So,
Do you have a mentor at this point?
I wouldn't say I have a mentor, but what's really cool, recently going to Florida and then last year when I went to Indiana is I've picked up a lot of networking. So I know a lot of guys who are similar age as me, similar stages of business, some guys that are more elevated in business, some guys that are starting. So I try to mentor guys who are just starting, tell them my methods and practices. And then I do find a little bit of mentorship on companies that have made it even further than I have, who are doing big commercial properties and crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it that way, because mentorship doesn't always have to be as structured as you may think, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because that's a big thing. You see a lot of influencers, self-help influencers talk about is, hey, just find a mentor. And like you're saying about structure, I think a lot of people will think, oh, it's just so structured. I need to reach out to 10 people and hopefully Johnny or Bill says I'll be my mentor and hopefully they start calling me. But no, you need to call your mentor, and then it's not just like a mentorship, but almost just like a complete relationship altogether. You become, they're not just like a father to son figure, but
Right.
like a friend in a way, and a really good mentor could even learn stuff from the apprentice to
Right.
say.
Yes.
Yeah, that's real. And that's something I'm looking forward to, because you see a new situation occur as far as the mentors and officiating. We believe that they've had every difficult situation happen so we can get information. But the way that the game manifests, dude, like eventually there's something new. And you're going to want to still keep, your attention on that. As the older person who's like the master, you're still going to want to keep your attention on what could possibly go wrong anywhere. And I think that's why we love trying to master these things, because for that purpose. Let me ask you, so you're very busy, obviously, you're filling your schedule with all these different things, yet that appearance when it comes to officiating, looking like you're fit, looking like you're able to run up and down matters. How do you go about scheduling your workouts, and how do you even learn what to do when you go to the gym by yourself?
Oh, well, I was very lucky, just, similar to yourself, how you found Blake here, somebody who educated themselves to the next level of training. So it's like, I understand some basic stuff. You squat, your legs are going to be sore, your legs are going to grow bigger. But, Blake here, he understands to the next level of protein synthesis and probably all this crazy stuff, fast twitch muscle, slow twitch muscle. So I was lucky to find a guy very similar to Blake. And he kind of taught me everything I know in the gym, and I'm so thankful he taught me how to diet properly and everything like that. And my thought with working out, and the reason why I still maintain a good workout schedule is I think about all that time I worked out when I was 18, 19, and I was unhappy with my body, and I made myself happy through working out and getting more fit. And then now I think of myself at 25, and I don't want to disrespect that young man who worked his tail off at 18. So it's like being respectful to my younger self and respectful to my older self, because if I don't continue that workout now, my older self is going to feel more disconfident in his body, and he's going to then say, man, what did 25-year-old Trevor do this for,
Yeah.
So
Dropping some gems.
I never really thought about that. Like my
Right.
18-year-old self used to grind, and how are you going to take his daily decisions, all this work he did, waking up, going to do stuff he didn't want to do, like you're just going to disrespect all those moments by letting yourself go? That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, like in a weird spiritual way, I always try to think about that self. I try to think, what if I came face to face with my 10-year-old self? What if I came face to face with my 18-year-old self? What if I come face to face with my 50-year-old self? And I hope all of them are all on the same page. Hey, we all worked out all this time. Hey, we all, made financially responsible decisions and all that.
Yeah, because at those times in our life, we all had a dream of where we'd be around now, or maybe later than now in our adulthood. And some people don't continue to dream, and then sometimes we just forget the other dreams that we had. But you can live out those dreams. You just have to make sure we're taking the daily steps and being consistent, like you said earlier.
Yeah, for sure. And on that same question, I guess I'll bounce that question back to both of you. What keeps you guys consistent? What keeps you motivated in the gym, health-wise, and everything like that?
I'll let you answer first.
Sure. And for me, it's kind of how you're saying. It's a little bit of a spiritual thing, because I want to take myself serious and try to make myself as accountable as possible for this growth I'm going to have, whether it's with my assets or the skills that I'm trying to obtain. So for me, if I'm not doing that work, as days go by, I start looking in the mirror and I'm like, like I know you're 3 days now where you haven't worked out. You're 5 days now, and you're starting to not even feel as good. And it has become that for me. It's like this overall integration of my ideology of treating myself like I matter and that I can be great. It kind of starts with that habit in the gym for me. And I'm not like a super trainer like Blake. Like, I'm not the super strong dude. I've never actually had like a strong bench or pull-ups and these types of things, but I've consistently made myself go. And I've had days where I felt terrible all day long. And then 7 p.m. comes and I'm like, well, let me drag myself to the gym real quick. And by like 7:45, I feel great and I'm inspired. And I'm like, why didn't I just do this 10 hours ago rather than wallowing around all day waiting to see when I was going to go to the gym? Like, I've had those types of experiences. Right. So that's a little bit for me. It's just like this only thing that's really helped me like create a habit to feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I personally like to work out in the morning because the same thing, the longer you wait, the harder it is. And then I know that having that type of routine is going to benefit me in every single other aspect of my life. People think working out's either to look good or to change the numbers and the lab values that you get when you get your blood drawn. But I know that I think better, I'm nicer, I feel better, my digestion's better, my appetite's good, my sleep's better. I can't think of one thing that is worse because I worked out. And that's also with balance of working out, because I know people that work out too much and the recovery's not prioritized enough. So I've found a lot of interest in just understanding the purpose behind exercise and how the body functions. And like you said, down to a cellular level with the protein synthesis, things like that. Some people don't even realize why we need to drink water. So a big thing for me is educating other people as I educate myself, and then practicing what I preach. I know the keys to a lot of things. I'm not perfect with any of these methods. I'm a student of life as well, but I can feel myself making improvements. And whether it's looking in the mirror or me just assessing myself and how I perform, like I said, there's never a negative aspect of my exercise unless it's an injury. Right. Mm-hmm. And so over time, I've been working out since I was 13 years old, and I've fallen off a couple times. And so I've experienced firsthand what it's like to kind of let yourself go and to slip back into a suboptimal performance. But here I am having this knowledge and knowing that I'm capable, so I'm not going to do myself a disservice and disrespect the younger me by not doing what I know I need to do. And that is just a way of me respecting myself, because I know better. What I eat, I put things into my body as a way of respect. Like, I deserve to feel good. I deserve to be, satiated, and I deserve to be able to heal. And what I do to myself is going to be a direct reflection of how that is going to be produced.
And like they say, your body is a temple. And, for me with Lintaway, it's like the temple of body for Lintaway is, my van. I got to keep that up. I got to keep my equipment nice and clean and everything. But for you, especially with health, I mean, you're training and everything. So, you respecting yourself is the biggest thing, because as someone, if I was to get a trainer, I'd want someone who, looks fit and practices what they preach.
Right,
so.
Right. And
sure.
So I definitely try to do that. And like I said, I'm not perfect, right? So last night, I had Dairy Queen last night. I'm not going to lie. But the whole rest of my day, I didn't have any carbs before noon, and I had over 150 grams of protein, and I had at least 3 servings of vegetables, 2 servings of fruits. And so I set myself up so I can make decisions like that and it not be detrimental. And I've learned to not let it turn into this snowball effect too, because it used to be I have one bad thing and then it's like whole rest of my day is just like this frenzy. And it's hard to have that self-control because sugar is addicting. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so for you to be addicted to something and not even know that that's an addiction is a very detrimental place to be. That would be like smoking cigarettes every day and you not knowing that cigarettes are bad. Most people know that cigarettes are bad, right? But some people are still doing that. So just think about how magnified that is if you're not aware of how bad it is. And we see a lot of people experiencing that. They're in their 70s and 80s now just because of how it was marketed previously. And I think that we'll see a change with sugar in the future as well, because we don't need to be throwing sugar in every single thing we eat, but that's how the majority of our foods are made.
Yeah.
So being able to be aware of things like that, not only to better myself, but better my family, let my daughter grow up in the safest and most optimal environment possible. I definitely take a lot of pride in being the vessel to make those changes within my community.
Man. And that's a whole nother motivation now that you say that, is because I do believe that if you're trying to have like a scholarly endeavor, if you like to study and grasp greater information, that you have to have a workout routine connected with it. I believe that matters because you need that time to like integrate and have a more physical, real world application of what you're kind of doing in the abstract, downloading all this information and trying to like integrate it into your being. So I work with these students who will have counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, and you can tell sometimes like they're not taking care of themselves physically. I'll see them come for their meetings and everything. And I'm like, I wouldn't necessarily want to listen to this person. So that's been a motivation for me, is I always want to look like someone that I would even listen to. Because sometimes I will dismiss people like, you don't even really look like you take care of yourself. You might have a greater knowledge in one area, but do I really want to like fully follow what you're doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's funny you say that too, because it all ties back together. But with officiating, presentation is huge. That's one of the first things you learn is get your shirt tailored, get your pants tailored. 'Cause if you're out there and you're a skinny guy or fat guy and your shirt is way out there, doesn't look good, the crowd's going to eat you up more. They're going to subconsciously maybe not even know why they dislike you more, but it's because of presentation, and presentation is positive points. So the better you could elevate yourself or your presentation, the more brownie points you're gonna get.
You're called officials for a reason. You
Yeah,
gotta look official.
Yeah, and everyone, we could sit and have an hour-long conversation and find inspiration, but when most of our interactions with the people in our lives are like 2 to 5 seconds long, and there's so much information passed by just looking at somebody and being like, oh man, you're taking care of yourself, you're dedicated. I could see it in the way you're walking, holding your head, posture, the muscles around you. You've worked your way to this point, and that can be a 3-second inspiration.
Yeah,
right.
Using that awareness as a tool, though. Yeah, because some people are aware in that way, and it makes them self-conscious, and so they're always trying to look good, and they feel anxious in public because they think everybody's looking at them. But you can also use that to your advantage, saying, "I know I'm well put together. I know I'm prepared to be here. I'm not doing anything wrong. So if people are looking at me, I'll give them a show."
And when I see a 50-year-old, we could take NBA official like Mark Davis. When I see Mark Davis, 50-year-old man, strong, walking around looking presentable, I'm like, that's inspiring now, because you got to go through decades of going to the gym, decades of you might have had a breakup or someone passed away or it's a low point in your life, and you still worked on making sure that you were strong, upright, core strong, doing all the things you need to do to present yourself like you're ready to go and you're competent.
But I will say that I've seen people approach, I guess, business differently than how we've just described, to where they are so good at the person-to-person interaction that like their opinion or appearance and other, I guess, disorganization sometimes, all of these more negative qualities kind of get overlooked. And some people make it work for them. But I do think that it's something that will eventually be setting you back and not allowing you to reach your full potential if you try to operate in that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tony Robbins, he talks about the 7 signs of wealth, and he talks about a story once how he was at like some type of play or something, and he saw one of the wealthiest men in Europe, billionaire. And his son was amazed by it because he was like, Dad, that's the wealthiest guy in all of Europe or wherever he was from. And he was like, Tony Robbins told him, he's like, he's not wealthy because he had a cane. He was like 600 pounds. He was so heavy he had to take up 2 seats. So even in that extreme example, that guy had $1 billion and he wasn't even wealthy in a total sense because even though he was a billionaire, I'm sure it hurts to get out of bed for him. And that's why it's so important to be well-rounded and overall just for all those levels of happiness, because a happy body is a happy mind. If you're not happy and healthy in the body, you're going to feel that pain, and then your mind's not going to be right because you're focused on the pain too. So
Man, it's interesting as you say that. It makes me think like there's a mind-body connection there. Sometimes if you're making bad choices during your day, it's hard to fall asleep. And if you haven't worked on your body, it might be hard to wake up.
Yeah, I always say health is wealth, and I've seen a lot of successful people that have not prioritized their health, but all the successful people that I try to kind of emulate and take notes from are definitely physically fit as well. So I think that lifestyle choices are directly related to your life. Some people are living in poverty or living in I guess suboptimal situations, and they don't feel like they can get out of that, but they're not really doing much in their lifestyle to change getting out of that because they feel restricted, and they might be restricted, but you have to find a way, right?
yeah. The biggest negative thing is I cannot. When someone says I can't do that, I can't do that. And as long as you just just change it from I cannot, I can't to I can, your life is going to change instantly because thinking you cannot do something is now going to create a lack of action. Whereas if you believe you can do something, now you're going to be reactive to that and you're going to show action towards your goal, whether it's losing weight, money, whatever it try to be.
Yeah, every single time. And that leads me into the question I wanted to ask you, because you enter homes of some of the most wealthiest homes in the valley, and also sometimes apartments will contract you guys to do like 40 units, and you could be in an apartment that is considered poverty living. And I'm wondering for you, since you get to see kind of the ways that people are organizing their homes from the inside, it's very intimate settings that people are allowing you into. What are some of the key characteristics, differences that you've seen between the super wealthy people, the way they're organized, and maybe some people that are in poverty?
Yeah, I would just say at a lot of super wealthy houses, it's a lot more bright. There's always more sun into the room, They're always bringing as much sun as possible. And then in a lot of places of poverty, unfortunately, a lot of the times it's super dark environments. I mean, they have blinds and windows too, but they don't open them. And then so it creates a super dark, negative environment. And a lot of the times, and I hate to say this, but a lot of lower income could be a lot of hoarder houses, and in those you just see complete disorganization, some funky smells that you don't want to smell, and it's just interesting because I think a lot of the times people will be in poverty, and it's a super unfortunate situation to be in. I mean, I've been in poverty-like situation myself too, at apartment complexes and such, but I think if you are in that situation, it's important to organize your environment, and that's what could also help separate successful from unsuccessful is just organization, whether it be in your house or in your business. But you want to organize your paperwork business-wise, and you want to organize your house, because if everything's not organized, you're going to have a harder time finding stuff, and it's just going to be a lot more mentally cramming. I mean, you're going to have to worry about finding your socks or something instead of getting on your day and thinking, okay, I'm going here, 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 and getting my agenda for the day finished,
Yeah, no, that's real. And that's I didn't even think about the light exposure aspect.
Yeah.
I did not expect you to say that, but it makes a lot of sense. And like you're saying, organizing your thoughts begins with organizing your space, organizing what's around you. It's interesting how we see those differences. And we were talking about officials. Between an official that's a rec league dude who doesn't have higher aspirations, he might not go get his shirt tailored. He might not pay attention to those details about how he looks. The officials that are making the money that everybody wants to and doing the most amazing assignments, they're paying attention to every detail, 360 degrees of how they look.
Absolutely. Down to the down to even having black socks underneath your pants that you may not see. It's absolutely every detail needs to be in perfect line.
And it almost takes no money to pay that type of attention to detail. That's kind of the point I'm trying to get at here, is that's something that you can just change from your perspective. That doesn't take a whole bunch of money, but it just takes focus, right? And mental clarity. That's probably the hardest thing, because it's hard to focus consistently on something for a time period when your brain is fogged and you're thinking about how you're going to catch up, or how you looked a certain way to someone or said the wrong thing to somebody. Something to think about. What do you think? You have anything else on that as far as the differences between places that you've seen?
No, I just kind of agree with you on the mental fogging. The more mental fogged you are, the more disorganized you are in your personal life, your paperwork and everything. It's just going to make everything a lot more difficult for you, just planning around your house and getting everything set up. You're just going to feel mentally better. Same as your body too. If you're not taking care of your body, sloppy house, sloppy body, sloppy lifestyle, sloppy brain, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be on an irregular sleep schedule. You're going to wonder why you're not happy, why you're waking up late, why you're feeling like garbage,
Yeah. Sure. You said that you've experienced being in apartments where you were maybe on the end of poverty. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just where I started in the beginning of my career and everything, coming from Globe, Arizona. I was 19 when I moved out here, and the first place I lived is I was living in a mattress in an apartment complex with 3 other guys, and I was living in the living room. So I didn't even have...
So you just had a mattress on the ground in the living room?
Yeah, so I didn't even have my own room. And then after that, I then moved to another apartment, which was in a very bad neighborhood. I mean, I heard police sirens every night, gunshots. The guy below me was a drug addict. So I've experienced those types of things. But what kept my head was, even though it could be very hard when you're seeing stuff outside your window you don't want to see, or maybe you're not the happiest in where you're at in your personal life, keeping that organization is huge, because you basically, every decision in life is an investment. You could either take the investment to take a better bit of yourself and start going up, or you could be the opposite, where you get depressed and just let it all go. And so everything in life, has a reaction to it, whether you go to the grocery store, there's a reaction to that. So everything aligns and correlates in some way. So
I agree.
That's why it's important, even if you're in a low spot in life, just to strive for the best, have a positive mindset, and also take actions towards what you're trying to do.
Yeah, organize your things.
Yep,
You
and
can
take
organize
action. Take action, make a decision. That's very important. And simple organization, right? People is like, well, my closet's not color organized or whatever, but it doesn't have to be that intense. Like, make your bed. I've been to people's house where they never make their bed because they always have clothes on the bed. They don't even put their clothes away, right?
Yeah.
So simple habits like that will definitely lead into the other aspects of your life. And then, again, taking action, feeling like you have that internal locus of control. Like, if I want to make this happen, I can make it happen. Going to the grocery store, being cognizant of what I'm buying at the grocery store, loading your cart with a bunch of sugar-filled processed foods, cookies, cakes, pies, or vegetables, meats, and things that you know are going to make you feel better, because we overcomplicate things sometimes. Like, the average person knows what a healthy food is, but we choose the bad food because it tastes better. And what benefit am I going to get from tasting good food that's going to ruin my body?
I love that you say that, because I've always thought with health is like, sometimes, I mean, I'm a victim of it too. I'll buy M&Ms or something like that. But truthfully, I try to think the same thing, as I'm satisfying my taste buds for 30 seconds or a minute to then later have these negative repercussions on my body or on my mindset. So,
And it's all about dopamine. The things that we will choose to do are the things that we will get enjoyment from. So if you find enjoyment in having an organized home like I do, then you'll put in the effort to make it organized. Because I know I feel anxious and chaotic when there's dog hair all over the floor, or my bed's not made and I haven't folded my clothes for 2 days. They've been sitting in the hamper. Those little things build up over time, and then you feel like you don't have any control. And then you feel anxious and depressed, and the rest of your life feels like it's falling apart.
Right. At that point, how are you going to go apply for credit cards to begin your new company when you have not, you're going on the downslide of all these anxious thoughts and things that you should have been doing.
Yeah.
It's hard for you now to build. Your foundation is already slippery.
Yeah.
You just found that electric bill that's sitting on the table for the past 2 weeks. Like, you're not going to make any business investments because your money's tied elsewhere from being disorganized.
Yeah, and in a sad way, also, then you might be on social media looking at a person like Trevor, a young dude who's putting his eggs in multiple baskets and investing in himself, working hard every single day. And on top of all that disarray, now you could be like, dang, I'm behind the 8 ball. I'm looking at a dude like Trevor, and now I'm just hating, and it makes it even harder for me to get going towards something that I want to do.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked before about how important the journey is. And Trevor's been nice enough to share part of his journey so people have better perspective. But if you're just looking at his business and look at him, you wouldn't know about all the background, right? So you would draw all these conclusions and not really see how attainable it is to do something similar. And then I guess we didn't really ask. Did you have a model that kind of inspired you to be an entrepreneur and actually make those moves towards starting your own business?
I would say the biggest model figure that I've had is actually probably Grant Cardone, and that's because he always talks about the 10x mindset, and that was a massive breakthrough for me because I would do some stuff for my business, but I wouldn't do what I thought I was capable of doing. And then I read the 10x rulebook where he talked about everything you do, 10x it. You know, if you if you go knocking on one door, knock on 10 doors, basically. And he talked about omnipresence and getting your name out there in as many ways as possible. So just thinking about being absolutely as productive as you can always be from Grant Cardone has inspired me, and being absolutely productive. And it's crazy because I have implemented that 10x into my life I used to just clean dryer vents. Then now I film the dryer vent cleaning to now I have before and afters, video inspection, just building everything and being just 10x of what you could always do. Because what you think you're capable of, you're probably capable of 10 times what you actually think. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, adding layers to it, I see.
Yeah, it's like, talking about productivity, I think it was Beyonce that talked about once she didn't even eat for like 48 hours or something crazy like that because she was so focused and people had to remind her to eat. And that's just that productivity right there, And once you're in the mindset and the grind, it could be hard to stop sometimes. And you gotta remember to eat or drink some water,
Man, that's real. That's really real. And that's probably where having people around you that can ground you back into reality is probably now a huge asset. Right? Because we already know how you could go Mamba mode, you could go super hard, and then you look up, you're like, no, I haven't slept for a little bit. Like, I don't even know if I've eaten well. And we all know because we're so passionate about being great out here in America, but that now comes to where a family member, a loved one, relationships help us because it grounds us back into reality.
Especially, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and what's so cool too about, working hard and all this stuff and 10X in your life is one day you could go from 10X and everything and tailor it all the way back to just living your life because you 10X'd so hard that now we're talking about younger self, older self. Well, now my older self could thank my younger self and be like, oh man, I'm so thankful that young man worked so hard because now I'm on the beach here in Hawaii and I'm enjoying life and I don't have to worry about finances. I don't have to worry about getting back anytime. I just am enjoying it.
Working the Maui Classic.
Absolutely.
Well, I was just going to say, and here we are falling in love with the process and the journey. And we have the dream of the destination, but we know that the destination is one piece at the end of this long strand of a puzzle. And so, who we surround ourselves with is very important in maintaining that vision, because I know people my age that have 100 times more money than I do and that are very established and have that home that I think that I want and things like that. But those are people that I appreciate and I take notes from them and I like being around them. But at the same time, having different levels to your network, having people that are at the same point as you that are similarly driven or even more driven. I think you might be more driven than me. And so I think I should hang out with you more. And but also there are people that I like hang out with because I know I have something to offer to them as well. But I've been in a place in my life where you almost feel elevated being around people that you have something to offer to, because you feel like, oh, I'm kind of the leader of this little segment. But you have to be able to humble yourself and put yourself in a room with people that might be a little bit ahead of you if you expect to continue to progress. Because I heard Tony Robbins say, actually this morning I was listening to an interview with Tony Robbins, that happiness and satisfaction comes from progress. And people that don't continue to make progress, they're the ones that are dissatisfied and feel kind of lost in their journey.
And yeah, I think about that all the time. That's a good point you bring up, because that is huge. I think all the time. Me and Russ talk about this. If we became wealthy enough to where we never have to actually work again, we'd still want to officiate because we love it, and it gives us that purpose. Because yeah, if you just have all the money in the world but you don't do anything, you just sit around, your productivity is halted. I do believe that you become unhappy because you just have all day to think, all day to watch whatever television you want. So yeah, totally agree on that.
Yeah. And I tell my parents, they're not retired yet. So I'm like, okay, when you guys retire, what are you going to do? Like, let's make a plan now, because that's one thing that a lot of people fall victim to, is not having a plan after they get to that point that they've been dreaming of. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do I do with myself?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, thank you guys again for bringing me on. You guys are both very cool. I think we talked about a lot of really nice spiritual things and just about mindset and everything. So you guys have very similar mindsets as me. I hope to come back on sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And it was just great talking to you guys. So thanks for having me on again.
I agree. Like I said at the beginning, this is the first time I got to meet Trevor. So I've gotten a little peek into your life and understand the business and the Lenta way. And it's very insightful to see why you do what you do, because it's such a niche. It's not something that I would ever think of. And you're doing it very well. So tip of the hat to you. And you're friends with my good friend here, so I automatically see the value, and I do definitely plan on having you back on here too.
For sure, and you're fit the mold of what we want to do with this brand and this podcast, because the reason I think you're inspiring, Trevor, is because of how you've handled down ticks. We can all be great when everything's going well, but me, everyone who I feel like I vibe with, and the kids who I know that feel like I'm inspirational feel that way, because I talk about the darker times and how we're going to stay real and true during those times. And you've embodied that and now shared it with our guests and our listeners. So thank you for that. And I don't have anything else to say, Blake.
Tell us one more time, Lentaway, where can we contact you?
Yeah, if you're in the Phoenix, Arizona area, lentawayductcleaning.com. If you're not in the Phoenix, Arizona area, don't worry, we still have a lot of video footage for you to be oddly satisfied by. So just check out Lentaway Duct Cleaning. Just type that in on anywhere, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Check us out. You're going to be oddly satisfied, I guarantee it. And also check out the R&B podcast.
Yes, and R&B, you know where to find us. Similar, right? Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, basically anywhere you look for us, you're going to find us. And just like last week, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.
Nice.